Most artists do not know how to properly read Spotify analytics. They know how to look at numbers, but that is not the same thing at all. Seeing the streams is easy. I mean, anybody can do that. Seeing the monthly listeners is also easy. Seeing saves is easy. But understanding what kind of streams you're getting and why you're getting them, where they're coming from, what's actually helping the song, what's hurting it, and what's sending a good signal, what sends a weak signal, what the numbers basically are besides just a vanity number. That's where most people are lost. So in this video, I'm not going to be talking about the basic level stuff, like how to pitch a song or how to change your profile picture on Spotify. I want to go a layer deeper, actually maybe a couple of layers deeper, and talk about how actually to read your Spotify analytics in a way that helps you make better decisions in the future and not just feel better or worse about your day. So if you guys didn't know, I'm an artist named Zilla. I've been doing this for about the last 6 years, and I found some sort of amount of success here and there. I think at most I've gotten up to 300,000 monthly listeners, and right now I'm sitting at 121,000 monthly listeners. And this is actually a pretty good place to start because this is where I want to really start showing you the basics of how to look at your overall stats. And then we'll get into each song specifically on how we should look at those, okay? Right here, it says I have 82,000 monthly active listeners, and it says this is 68% of my 121,000 monthly listeners. So what are active monthly listeners? These are people that were monthly listeners last month that are currently monthly listeners right now. So that means I have about 32% of my monthly listeners right now are brand new monthly listeners that I did not have the month before. So this is a good thing to know. This is also probably why it's showing a 4% increase in my listeners right now, my overall listeners, because there has definitely been some kind of jump. Now, these could have been from a monthly listener, could have been from the month before and had come back maybe, but we have to keep in mind that it doesn't just mean that like people are coming back to Sadzilla. They're like, oh, I got to go out of my way and go listen to Sadzilla. I could have just not shown up in their radio or on a playlist the last month, but I did this month. You get what I'm saying? It's just something to pay attention when it comes to the active monthly listeners. You do want a high active monthly listeners, but it's not end all be all. If you have a low percentage of your monthly listeners being active monthly listeners, it could mean that you have a good amount of monthly listeners that are, you getting a new resurgence of monthly listeners. That's a good thing as well. So there's a lot more nuance when it comes to that stuff. But as far as like monthly listeners in general, just looking at this number right here is good. So it says the previous period right now was 116,000, and now this period is 121,000. So that's where we're getting that 4% jump, right? So just something to keep in mind. Streams. Now, if we go look at streams here, I have 391,000 streams, but now all streams are not created equal, okay? And we can look at the last period here is 381, now it's 390, so 2% up, which is like 10,000 more than it was last month. Hey, little steps here. But like I was saying, not all streams are created equal. Where are these streams coming from? The streams come from playlists, they come from algorithmic stuff, they come from, if you're looking up the song literally on the person's profile, that's important as well. So we're going to get into what the differences between those are when we start getting into each song. But for now, just know that just because you get a high number of streams does not always mean that's like a good signal or a bad signal. There's a lot of things that go into it. Streams are not all created equal, okay? Our stream to listener ratio is going to be very important. For example, 3.2, bad, not good. This should be way higher, honestly, for my stuff. I have another project called Sunbroku, and even on that one, it has a 4.5, way better. I have a homie I'm not going to show his stuff right here because I haven't gotten permission from him, but I can see his stats. He has like a 9 or something like that, and maybe even like a 10. What that means is you have every single person that streams your music. So let's say on average, if I had like a 10 stream to listener ratio, that would mean that every person on average that listens to my music at least listens to it 10 times. So every person that listens to my music right here at least listens to it on average 3 times. They will hear my music. So out of 121,000 listeners, every single one of them on average will listen to me 3 times at least. It could be the same song, it could be different songs, it doesn't matter. When we get into the like song by song basis, that's where that's going to matter the most. But just something to keep in mind. Saves are going to probably be one of the biggest things that we're going to be looking at, and one of the most important things that we're going to be looking at. The fact that I have a 14% jump on this is good. I'll explain to you guys why that matters so much in a little bit, but just pay attention to that, okay? Playlist ads, it's cool. It's not the biggest deal, okay, guys? I'll get into that as well. Followers, it matters, but it's not. It matters in different kinds of ways, so we'll get into that as well. So let's start jumping into it. There's a lot of new features that are coming into Spotify for artists, like Song DNA, source of streams. There's new information that we're getting pretty soon that I'll probably get into when I understand it a little bit more. If you guys have seen some of my older videos about Discover Mode, that's a whole other thing that we can look at, maybe like a retro look and see like how that's been working out and whether or not that was a good thing or a bad thing. I think it was probably a bad thing overall, to be honest with you, but whatever. Okay. And this is going to be important. It's going to give us information on like the differences between how those songs performed, and very important information when it comes to things like release radar, for example. So let's get into that. It crayons in the gas tank. So this song has a total of 20,000 streams. It was released on February 20th. So just a little bit over a month ago, I dropped this song, right? Now, as you can see, basic things, 2 stream to listener ratio. Actually, let me look at last 12 months so we can really look and see what this is. 20,000 streams, almost 10,000 listeners, 651 playlist ads, 871 saves, okay? So, like I said, 20,000 streams, guys. 6,900 of those came from Release Radar. Okay, this is really important. This is something I want you to really pay attention to. Close to half of the streams that I got on this entire song came from Release Radar. Okay, now how does Release Radar work? Focuses on followers. Okay, focuses on how many followers you have. So if you're following me on Spotify, there's a good chance that I'm showing up in your Release Radar. But let's say if you bring up Spotify and like I'm the top song that's on your Spotify Release Radar, right? And you go click on it and you're like, I don't like this song, and immediately click off of it or whatever, you skip the song, right? That next week that I show up on Release Radar, I'm not going to be at the top anymore. I'm going to be way lower, and other people that you had paid attention to last week for Release Radar, they're going to be higher up. So not everybody's Release Radar is created equally. You'll find that a lot because a lot of this is algorithmic driven. What that tells us is that something like Crayons in My Gas Tank got a pretty decent Release Radar push. If you look at Release Radar 6,900, radio got 5,500. Okay? Now we're getting really close to what that 20,000 is, okay? If we look at what the actual source of streams, so we see active sources, 6,900 active sources. Program sources, 13,000. So active sources means that they went out of their way to go listen to that song off of my profile. So they got a notification on their homepage that says, hey, Sazel's got a new song. It's called Crayons in My Gas Tank. You're like, okay, I'm going to go listen to that song. You click on it. That's an active source, okay? A program source is you're listening to music and then randomly off of the radio or like autoplay, you get this song on your radio. And let's say you interact with it pretty good, it's going to send that to more people. It's not a bad thing that this song has that many streams from radio. It's actually a great thing. The fact that it got a Discover Weekly already and got Discover Weekly streams, which is great. If you guys don't know what Discover Weekly is, that's a whole other thing. But every single Monday, you'll get a Discover Weekly push. Maybe, if it actually like is performing really well. That's how you know a song's performing really well, is if it's getting a Discover Weekly push, okay? I just want to give you guys like an overview of what this all means. If radio is pushing the song, okay, and it's getting a lot of streams from radio, that's telling me that people are interacting with it really well, okay? That's telling me that it's getting a good, you guys guessed it, save rate, okay? Save rates are going to be really important. Of course, you're going to get your biggest save rate in the beginning, right? At the very beginning. So, for example, the first day that it was out, got 200 saves. And then it went down to 48 over a couple of days. Like it went 94, 67, 44, and then it had another jump. And then it stayed pretty consistent with 10 year, whatever. If we look, the song right now is it got 540 streams, 480 streams. It looks like it's getting an average of about 250 streams to 300 streams. So the song is doing pretty good still to this day. And that's a good thing. We're getting good interaction. And I think a big reason for that is we're getting a lot of radio play still to this day. We're still getting radio play. If we go and look at in the last 28 days, yeah, look, 2,500 in radio. We're still even getting a little bit of release radar from this month, but we're also getting that Discover Weekly. So just using this song as a comparison so that we can show the contrast of that to a song that didn't get a release radar and was released on a Monday instead. So let's go and look at that. So now let's look at a song that got a Monday release, but did not get a Friday release, okay? Now, this song is called Domina Theme. This is when I started doing Overwatch themes. I'm still doing them. This is a newer character that came out for Overwatch or whatever, and I wanted to release a song for it, and so we dropped it on a Monday. It was not supposed to get a release radar really at all because I was going to be releasing on that Friday, so that Friday song and the one that I pitched was going to be the Friday song was going to get the release radar push. Now, this might get a little bit of release radar push just because Kid Carrillo is also on the track, so it'll get his release radar, not my release radar. So my release radar is a lot bigger than his because I have a much bigger audience and much more followers and a lot more capital there to work with. So just to keep that in mind, okay? So if we look at these streams, the first day that it dropped, which was on Monday, it got 520 streams. That's no release radar, nothing, right? The next day, it got 844 streams. A couple of days later, it got 1,000 streams in one day. Right now, it's getting about 150 to 200, something, yeah, about 150 to close to 200, right? Now, the reason that it got such a still like high saves, 500 saves, 300 playlist ads, and has a 2 stream to listen ratio, which is not horrible. If we look at the playlist, Release Radar, it got 4,100 streams from Release Radar, sure. But it got 1,800 from radio. So this song is just performing really well with radio, regardless of whatever it would get for Release Radar. Now, this is like half of what it was getting, right? This is like half. This Release Radar is like half of what it actually ended up getting so far. But what I want you guys to pay attention to is that if you looked at that other song, we didn't go into it, but it got like 2,500 in the first day. Then it went down to, or maybe it got like 3,000. Then it went to like 2,500, and then it like goes for down from there because it gets that huge Release Radar push in the beginning. It drops off. With this, it didn't have a Release Radar push, okay? So everything that you're going to see right here, if we look at source of streams, okay, active sources is almost 5,000 and program sources is 6,000. So this still had a gigantic active source. So a lot of people, because you had to, it wasn't, you were getting this on your release radar. So it immediately gets people going out of their way to go stream that song instead of it just being fed to them on a playlist like Release Radar. Because at the end of the day, Release Radar is just another playlist. So it's just something to keep in mind when it comes to that stuff. Like you like the Release Radar is cool, and especially like when you start getting like really good reputation, you start building up really good reputation, and then it starts turning into a lot of like big streams on like first day on these songs. It's really cool and all, but does it overall help the song's health? Maybe not. Sometimes it doesn't. I have a lot of songs that do decent on Release Radar, and they have a big, huge jump, right? And then they just fall off. So, for example, I had this song called Bankroll Monroe the last 12 months. Let's look at it. So it got 1,500 in the first day, and then it dropped to 840, 600, got up to 790, and then it dropped off again. And now that song is getting maybe, 20 a day at most. So there's just something to keep in mind. Like sometimes it doesn't play out. Just because he gets a big jump doesn't mean that it's going to last or whatever. So if we look at the last 12 months, it got 1,300 in radio, and 4,300 of the streams came from Release Radar. So the song has 7,600 streams. You already know, just based off of that, the active sources is not going to be what we would want it to be. We look at the active sources, and what do we got? Yeah, look at that. Active sources, 1,200. Program sources, 5,500. This is not a good sign for Spotify about the lifespan of this song, like the actual health of this song. This song, they'll go and listen to this song, and then they're immediately like, skip, not feeling it. And hey, sometimes it's like that. And it is what it is. Maybe it's because they're not familiar with the person that I was collaborating with. Maybe that was throwing them off maybe at the beginning. Maybe it's just not the same kind of track that they would be used to. But either way, I'm just showing you the difference between good information that you're sending to Spotify versus bad information that you're sending to Spotify. So let's look at overall playlist, right? So radio is right now, my top playlist is radio. Right now, it's mainly all my top playlists are going to be algorithmic playlists. I don't get as much listener playlists streams as much, right? For example, like I'm on these, but they're not getting nearly as many streams as some of these other ones, these algorithmic ones. If radio's pushing the songs, that's telling us that those songs have potential. It's telling us that those songs, Spotify's looking at those songs a lot better than some other songs. Let's just say that. If we go last 12 months and we look at these, I can already tell like a lot of these songs that got big numbers in radio, these were some of the top songs that I saw constantly in my top 10. Okay, so now let's make our way back to the audience section after we got done with looking more in depth into each song. I really wanted to talk about the Release Radar stuff and the radio stuff and the differences between those type of tracks. Another thing that I wanted to point out is that Spotify has definitely cracked down on the types of playlists that you're getting added to and what the differences between those are, because we got a big problem with botting playlists, right? So we would have these like botted playlists. So if you have a playlist that you're paying to get on or whatever, it has to be a public playlist, okay? So like public playlist plays matter, and I think pay less, if I'm not mistaken, pay less than private playlists. So private playlists tell them that, hey, this listener is going out of their way to listen and add this song to their playlist, and it's like in their cycle, right? Versus a public playlist, it's way more calculated, and it's way more likely to be something that, for one, you're going to have a bigger audience that can go listen to that playlist. So that's going to be very construed, right? They're going to be much bigger playlists, much more streams are going to be coming from them because it's not private. But also, you're going to have that vulnerability for things like botted type streams and stuff like that to come into that. So that's just something to keep in mind. And remember, I was talking about saves. The difference, so I used to think that saves were just like if you add it to a playlist, that counts as a save, but it doesn't. So what saves means is if you click and you favorite it, you click save, what you're doing is you're taking that song and you're putting it into your saved songs folder. So this is not your playlist on Spotify. This is your saved songs. This means this is you're going out of your way to say this is one of your favorites, right? You're saving this song. When you do that, it sends the best message to Spotify that this song is worth something. You're telling Spotify with saving a song that you want this song on your Spotify for a long time. You're telling Spotify this song there's something special about it. And so that's just something to really think about because your saves are going to matter the most when it comes to how the song's going to perform on things like radio, and Discover Weekly. Those are going to be the biggest things that push those songs into playlists like that, algorithmic support. Because what it tells Spotify, hey, this has a high save rate, meaning that people are coming back to our platform to listen to this song. So that's why it's the most important metric on Spotify for artists that you want to pay attention to. Now, I don't mean go out of your way and be like, hey, go save my song. But guess what you can do? And this is a very common thing. Pre-save campaigns. This is why pre-save campaigns are so important. Now, the thing is that pre-save campaigns are not the end-all be-all. It's good to have good pre-saves and everything, but it doesn't mean that the song is going to automatically be successful just because you got a bunch of pre-saves. They don't know what the song sounds like. So pre-saving, I think, is a little bit different than saving as far as like messaging to Spotify's algorithm. But either way, more saves, the better. I don't ever really do pre-save campaigns. I should do them more often, honestly. But just the fact that I like see 14% on saves being a jump up, 14% jump in saves is a good thing for me. And that's something that you should pay attention to as well. Because if you're seeing good save rates on your songs are going to perform better. A good example of this is this song called Rising Sun right here. This song just started gaining momentum. You see already a higher stream to listener ratio this song has. It only got 3,000 streams this month, but like we're talking like 150 streams, 129 streams. This is not, we're not talking release radar. We're not talking anything like that. This song was just basically dead for a bit. And then all of a sudden it started getting more plays and stuff. Look at these saves. Look at the saves. This song has potential to do really well because if we go and look at here, it's just been growing and growing in streams. Okay, guys? If we look at by save rate, it's number 3 in my saves. More and more people are saving this song, right? Like it's only underneath like my latest song and in the last 28 days and my biggest song, which is crazy, right? But a lot of my newest songs are getting these high save rates that I normally wouldn't have gotten a long time ago. That just means that it's a good sign that your stuff is it's getting better, right? It's performing better. So that's just something else to look at. If you look at segments, it says I have 1.1 listeners in my total audience on Spotify. So this means this is the total number of your unique listeners from the last 2 years, not 1 year, 2 years. This is the sum of your monthly active, previous active, and programmed listeners. That means 1.1, almost 1.2 listeners, unique listeners. These individual accounts have listened to me in the last 2 years. Okay. So that's just something to pay attention to because look, that means 7% stayed active. 46% were previously active, I'm guessing from the 2 years before, and 47% were programmed. You don't want a high programmed, but you don't want a super low programmed either. It's a balancing act. So programmed means like if I had 70 programmed, that means that I'm not getting people to come to Spotify enough, right? It means that like I'm not sending enough traffic to Spotify for my stuff. It's mainly Spotify is force feeding my stuff to people. And you don't necessarily want that. You want these people to stay active and have them coming back. Just something to keep in mind. I know I didn't dive into that too much, but that is really important, guys, about your programmed listeners, your programmed streams, those radio, Release Radar, and Discover Weekly. If that's where most of your stuff is coming from, like from a 75, if it's like 75-25 and it's like where most of your stuff is coming from, that's not great. But anyway, yeah, guys, I know this was rambly a little bit, and I know I went on a little bit long. I hope that you guys got a lot of information out of this video. It's a lot of information, but I just wanted to give you my way of looking at this stuff and how I look at the streams and determine if the song is going to perform well or it's going to perform poorly, or how I see what's working versus what's not working, and make decisions on that information. Just something to think about, guys. I'm going to leave you guys with that. You guys have any more questions about what I went over today? Feel free to ask. I know like I can be rambly and rant a little bit. Let me know if you guys like this video and got information out of it. But anyway, I'm going to let you guys go. Until next time, Zilla out.